I'm done with Chuck Schumer, and here's why.
You are tuning in to the Morning Fix. Now get up and grab your fix.
My name is Macho. I'm the host of the Morning Fix live radio show. I stream daily from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, and we cover politics, culture, and relationships. We cover a wide spectrum of things so we can have the conversation that are most polarized in today's society. So instead of it staying polarized, let's normalize the conversation to work through some hard, difficult topics so that we're not at odds with each other and we could just learn where to build bridges, where to tear them down and say, you go your way, I go mine. And that's that. Agree to disagree. That's the whole method of this channel. Chuck Schumer has been in office for 42 years. That is no joke. That is serious stuff. I'm about to turn 35 years old in January. That guy has been in office longer than I've been alive. And I've been reading article after article how New York City has always been in debt. Either they are demanding more money from the federal government or they're offering tax abatement since far back as the 70s. You know, one of the things that they thought they revealed when they talked about Donald Trump's opportunity to get a 40-year tax abatement from buying a house. You guys remember that in the 70s? They thought we were just going to overlook and think just one way, the way they want us to think. It was the state legislator that gave him that opportunity to begin with. It's New York City's constant back and forth and constant mismanagement of money in making these kinds of deals. This is why I am done with people like Chuck Schumer. If you've been in office for 42 years and you have been literally listed as the worst landlord in the country when it comes to NYCHA, the housing authority that is now otherwise known as the projects, for crying out loud. We're talking about 60 some odd $billion in repairs to repair those buildings. The very buildings that they tout helps low income housing, helps people who are impoverished, who are disenfranchised. They don't even know how to take care of those buildings. Joe Pinion has spoken on those things. People like Chuck Schumer are just offering up lip service while Joe Pinion really wants to roll up his sleeves. Historically speaking, Republicans have always been about law and order, lowering taxes, managing money better, and has done that successfully. When Mayor Giuliani was the mayor of New York City, he brought down crime by 50% within his first term in office, literally rendering Bill Clinton his second term. Why? Because of lowering crime in New York City, overall lowered crime in the country. That's how bad it was here in the city. When Governor Pataki was the governor of New York State, you see the record. He kept criminals behind bars. He wanted to keep the state safe. He wanted to make sure that the state taxes were manageable so that it doesn't break the bank for New Yorkers, everyday New Yorkers like you and me, can be able to live and thrive. I grew up in the Upper East Side, otherwise known as Spanish Harlem, El Barrio. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. Not a lot of people made a lot of money when I was growing up. But you know what? There was opportunity just around the corner. That's the beauty about being in New York City. Always around the corner. There's always something there. A job opportunity, maybe entrepreneurship, maybe a school. The only thing that Chuck Schumer is primarily concerned about is women's choice, women's right to choose to kill babies, to which Planned Parenthood clinics exist in a lot of black neighborhoods in this city. That's what he's primarily saying. When he's speaking one way and acting another way, that starts to ring alarms towards people. And what else is he primarily concerned about? Student debt forgiveness. A lot of students who go to school in this city are not from this city. Just look at some of the major universities in New York City. So then, that's why I asked the question, are we voting for a politician who gives us lip service in honor of getting himself reelected to stay in office, rendering another term, doing things for people who are not from this city. I ask you this question. Do you think Chuck Schumer deserves your vote? Especially after video clips of the debate that we just saw that Chuck Schumer had with a guy named Joe Pinion. Let's check this out.
I do not support a national ban because the Supreme Court just said that it was a matter reserved for the states. I think that we should have less patience for politicians that use their perch to knowingly pass legislation that violates the law. And they've been doing it for a very long time. And so Chuck Schumer will say whatever he's going to say. Lindsey Graham's going to say whatever he's going to say. They're both willing to lie for the headlines and the votes. It's wrong, and it needs to stop.
My opponent doesn't want to answer the question directly, and it is very relevant, because Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and a large number of the senators he will ally with have said they want a national ban. A national ban.
And like a career politician, Chuck Schumer responded. Rather than telling us what he actually wanted to propose, which was a national requirement for abortion to institute Roe v. Wade, essentially rendering back to what it was before the court overturned it. That's why Senator Lindsey Graham offered a requirement in response, a 15-week limit. While Chuck Schumer doesn't want to have a limit, Senator Lindsey Graham stood up and said, hey, let's have a 15-week limit. But here's another thing that Chuck Schumer doesn't listen to, which clearly he doesn't listen to New Yorkers, just like he didn't listen to his opponent on the stage there. Joe Pinion literally said both senators, both politicians are willing to lie to get votes. He answered the question by saying the Supreme Court already ruled and rendered this decision to the states. I'm not going to go and make and write legislation to violate that decision. He answered the question. And this is what I'm trying to get New Yorkers to see. Do not buy the lie and see it for what it is. Joe Pinion answered the question, and he answered it very well. This decision was ruled and dealt with, and it should be rendered back to the states, which means he is going to take a hard look at the constituents here in New York. And he's going to say, I cannot have a ban here in this state because I'm looking and listening to you. All right, let's look at the next topic about immigration.
Well, let's be very clear. The mayor of New York City just declared a state of emergency for a migrant crisis Chuck Schumer spent 2 years saying was a figment of our imagination. You deal it with securing the border. It is not equal level terrain. Some places need a fence, some places need a wall, some places need more boots on the ground. But secure it you must. We need to go back to the stay in Mexico policy. We need to make sure that the asylum process is cleaner, that people don't have to go through such a process that is so convoluted. But more importantly, we need to make sure that there's accountability for people to come. There are 4 million people waiting in line to come to this country legally. We need to make sure we're not hiring 87,000 IRS agents. Perhaps we should hire some more immigration agents to facilitate those 4 million people coming here, many of whom are joining spouses. So that to me is a conscientious plan to get the job done. I think, again, when you have less people feeling as if that legal line is not going to move, you'll have more people who are unwilling to swim across the Rio Grande because people are taking their life into their hands, pursuing an American dream they were told by this president to pursue illegally.
Okay. So here's another example of how Joe Pinion addresses an issue that Chuck Schumer wanted to avoid, not the past 2 years. I will double down and push back against Joe Pinion. Although I agree with him in his answer, I would push back as far back as the first or second year of Donald Trump's presidency and how facetious and nefarious Chuck Schumer was because Donald Trump wanted to initiate a government shutdown because he wanted a deal on building the wall. And Chuck Schumer says, we are not going to have a deal and you should not shut down the government for this. Chuck Schumer has been avoiding this issue, the very issue that Mayor Eric Adams has been screaming about for months and months and months, despite the fact that all these cities call themselves what is called sanctuary cities, despite the fact that the Democrats are blaming the Republicans for shipping them to DC, New York, and coming from Florida, despite the fact that the Joe Biden administration, according to Jen Psaki, that Peter Doocy was able to reveal literally in the White House press conference, that the Biden administration was shipping migrants across the country overnight, right? Irregardless of all of that, Chuck Schumer was avoiding the obvious that this was even a crisis. Chuck Schumer avoids the obvious and only speaks when he wants to get reelected. When it comes to being the worst landlord in the country, he neglects the projects every single day. He touts and says, "Hey, we've got 500 million. Yeah, try over $62 billion in repairs just alone. 40,000 elevators on a weekend basis go out of service, virtually out of service in the projects. Tell me, how is he working and trying to help you? But just like he ignores you until election, he ignores the southern border. Why do we have a senator who represents us who don't care about the real issues in this country? This is not somebody who represents New York. This is somebody who represents a figment of an imagination that tells us how to think and what to vote for, rather than us speaking to him saying, you need to do this for us. I'd rather put my hands and my vote in a person who is new, that we're all saying, hey, we want new blood in the office. Hey, we're all for equity and opportunity for a black person, until that black person that wants to represent you is on the Republican Party. Until that black person is telling us the truth of what they see. We have crummy politicians that have been in office in New York State for years and has virtually done nothing. So what do you have to lose, New Yorkers, in voting for Joe Pinion? If you don't like what he's selling, you can vote him out just like you got to vote out Chuck Schumer. I'll leave you with that. You can tune in every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on The Morning Fix. I'm your host, Macho.